Sitting in my driveway.
The United States may take action against entities connected to China's military that supported the flight of a Chinese spy balloon into U.S. airspace last week. That's according to a senior State Department official on Thursday. The official added that Washington is confident that the manufacturer of the Chinese balloon has a direct relationship with the People's Liberation Army. The White House echoed the notion that Washington would take action, but has not specified what measures are under consideration. The FBI is leading efforts to analyze recovered remains of the balloon and said it had obtained only limited physical evidence. The Bureau has said it does not yet have enough information to assess its capabilities. But the State Department source said high-resolution imagery of the balloon revealed it was capable of conducting signals intelligence collection operations. President Joe Biden insisted in a Noticias Telemundo interview that he did not regret shooting down the balloon sooner.
And the idea that a balloon could break American airspace is, anyway, it's not a major breach.
The spectacle of the Chinese balloon drifting over the United States last week caused political outrage in Washington. Democratic and Republican lawmakers sharply criticized the military and the Biden administration for failing to shoot down the balloon when it first entered U.S. airspace, and instead waiting for a week to do so. China's foreign ministry has said it was a weather balloon that had blown off course and accused the United States of overreacting.
On a trip to Florida Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden took aim at Republicans who he says are threatening social safety nets, positioning his Democratic Party as the sole protector of Social Security and Medicare in a bid to reclaim the battleground state.
I know that a lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security and Medicare. Well, let me say this. If that's your dream, I'm your nightmare.
Speaking to a group of supporters, Biden outlined achievements like allowing the government to negotiate Medicare drug prices and impose price caps on insulin, and said Republicans are fighting to roll back those efforts while also seeking cuts to popular social programs. He noted that Florida's own Rick Scott backs a plan to have federal social safety net programs lapse every 5 years unless they are reauthorized.
It's not likely to get voted out, but I'll tell you what, it's likely it got cut drastically if you had to do it every 5 years. The very idea the senator from Florida wants to put Social Security and Medicare in the chopping block every 5 years, I find to be somewhat outrageous, so outrageous that you might not even believe it.
Senator Scott has pushed back, saying this week that Biden was intentionally misinterpreting his proposal, and he released a campaign attack ad ahead of Biden's visit.
I'm Rick Scott. Biden should resign. I approve this message.
Biden's trip is part of a blitz to at least 20 states by the president and members of his cabinet following his State of the Union speech on Tuesday, and ahead of a widely expected announcement that he is once again running for the White House. The last Democratic presidential candidate to win in Florida was Barack Obama in 2012. Both former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are early favorites in the fight for the Republican nomination for the next presidential election in 2024. Both would have a home field advantage in Florida over Biden. Still, Biden believes his policies could resonate in the state, where 1 in 5 residents is over age 65.
The PRC is the only competitor with the intent and means to reshape the international order.
A top U.S. diplomat on Thursday told Congress that a Chinese spy balloon that floated across the United States last week was part of an effort by the People's Republic of China, or PRC, to alter the global status quo.
Last week, the American people saw the latest example of that reality after the U.S. government detected, closely tracked, and shot down the PRC's high-altitude surveillance balloon that had entered our territorial airspace in clear violation of our sovereignty and international law.
Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that President Joe Biden's decision to shoot down the balloon demonstrated American resolve.
We will always act decisively to protect the American people. We will never hesitate to defend U.S. interests and the rules-based international order. We will confront the dangers posed by the PRC with resolve and keep demonstrating that violations of any country's sovereignty are unacceptable.
The public spectacle of the Chinese balloon drifting over the United States last week sparked outrage in Washington and brought into sharp focus the challenge posed by China to the United States and its allies. The high-altitude device entered U.S. airspace first over Alaska, crossed over Canada, and re-entered the United States above Montana. A U.S. fighter jet shot down the balloon over open water off the coast of South Carolina. Lawmakers from both parties have demanded answers as to why Biden didn't bring down the balloon earlier.
This administration owes Americans answers not only on what happened this past week, but on what steps they're going to take to ensure that this never happens again.
Democratic Senator John Tester chairs a Senate subcommittee that heard testimony from military and Defense Department staff on efforts to track and bring down the balloon. Pentagon officials said they were able to monitor the balloon's path and protect and conceal areas sensitive to U.S. national security.
Again, a key part of the calculus for this operation was the ability to salvage, understand, and exploit the capabilities of the high-altitude balloon, and we look forward to sharing that with you in a classified session and also openly as we learn more.
On Thursday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning dismissed U.S. charges that the balloon was part of a worldwide spying fleet, saying that allegation could be part of a, quote, U.S. information war against China. Beijing has said the balloon was designed for civilian meteorological and scientific purposes and had strayed into U.S. airspace. At a briefing for reporters on Thursday, senior FBI officials said they'd so far recovered very limited physical evidence from the balloon and did not yet have enough information to assess its capabilities. The State Department said the United States is exploring taking action against entities that may have provided components to China's People's Liberation Army, supporting the incursion by the balloon into U.S. airspace.
SpaceX has taken steps to stop Ukraine's military using its Starlink satellite internet service to control drones. Company CEO Gwynne Shotwell says the system was never meant to be weaponized. She says Ukraine has used it in ways that were not intended and not part of any agreement. Shotwell said the system was purely intended for humanitarian purposes, not offensive operations. SpaceX has now taken action to stop Starlink's use with drones, but wouldn't give details. It wouldn't say whether some service outages in Ukraine were connected to the measures. The system has provided Ukraine's military with broadband connections for its operations. Starlink has shipped thousands of terminals to the country, allowing users to communicate via its network of satellites. Shotwell said its use for communications was fine. Russia has attempted to jam Starlink signals in the region, but the company says it has been able to counter that with software changes.
There were hugs and warm greetings after more than 200 political prisoners were released to the U.S. from Nicaragua on Thursday. Among them, 5 former presidential hopefuls, including Juan Sebastian Chamorro.
Thank you very much.
Now, he has one thing on his mind.
Meet my wife, see my daughter for the first time in a year and a half. It crossed my mind, but it never crossed my mind that it was going to happen right now. I thought this was going to take longer.
Earlier in the day, crowds gathered at a Washington area airport to try give a warm welcome. Washington called the release a constructive step towards improving human rights. In Nicaragua, it was framed differently, with the judge describing the 222 prisoners as traitors that had been deported. Ortega has jailed dozens of political opponents, journalists, and religious figures in recent years, including before his 2021 re-election, which the U.S. denounced as a sham. Ortega's government did not ask for anything in return, according to a U.S. official, who added the government hoped to improve frosty relations with Washington. The Biden administration said the prisoners were being allowed in on emergency humanitarian grounds. But the Nicaraguan government said it planned to change the law to allow it to strip the prisoners of their citizenship, meaning they may never be able to go back.